AutomationEdge is building delightful workplace experiences. You can quickly map your business or IT processes to AutomationEdge workflows with its innumerable pre-built actions or steps. Hi, I'm Seema from AutomationEdge Professional Services. In this video, I will display the Microsoft Excel input step for reading Excel files. Let us describe the Microsoft Excel input step. The purpose of the Microsoft Excel input step is to read data from Excel or OpenOffice files in a workflow. It is a step in the input category for Process Studio workflows. It reads the Excel or OpenOffice files using the spreadsheet engine or drivers. You can select from Excel 97 to 2003 XLS driver, the Excel 2007 XLSX Apache POI driver for newer versions of Excel. Apache POI Toolkit API provides Java libraries for reading and writing Microsoft Excel files. The Apache POI Streaming API has better performance and uses less heap memory compared to the Apache POI. The Apache POI provides stream-based processing that is suitable for large files and requires less memory. Apache POI is able to handle both the XLS and XLSX formats for spreadsheets. The OpenOffice ODS driver for OpenOffice files, the Excel streamer, like the Apache POI streaming, is also for reading large XLSX files. It is memory efficient and works across machine configurations. The Excel binary XLSB driver can read Excel binary files. The file format is available Excel 2007 onwards. It can read and write to Excel workbook sheets faster, making them useful for large spreadsheets. Let us continue. The Microsoft Excel input step can read multiple files at a time. You can add files in the configuration table by browsing the files one by one, or you can use a regular expression to filter and include files in a folder. Similarly, you can use a regular expression to filter and exclude files in a folder. You can select a list of sheets to read. You can select the fields to read, and you can also read file properties as additional output fields. Now let us see the Excel input step configuration options in more details in Process Studio. I'm in Process Studio. I have created a blank workflow Excel input. Let us drag and drop the Microsoft Excel input step on the canvas. We can now double-click to configure the Microsoft Excel input step properties. The first is the step name. Provide a step name as you would like it to appear in the workspace and on the canvas. The step name should be unique within the workflow. For demo purposes, I can leave the step name as Microsoft Excel input, or I can use a convention. So the first three letters denoting input file and a description such as I would be reading employee details. So let me leave the step name as input file for employee details. Next, there are several tabs to configure. The first is the Files tab. In the Files tab, the first field is the spreadsheet type engine. In this field, you need to select the spreadsheet type engine or driver according to the file to be read. The default value is Excel 97 2003 XLS to read Excel 97 to 2003 files. You can select other spreadsheet types from the drop-down list, such as Excel 2007 XLSX, Apache POI. Apache POI Toolkit API provides Java libraries for reading and writing Microsoft Excel files. You can select Excel 2007 XLSX for reading files 2007 and above. The next is Excel 2007 XLSX Apache POI Streaming. The Apache POI Streaming API has better performance and uses less heap memory. Apache POI provides stream-based processing that is suitable for large files and requires less memory. Apache POI is able to handle both XLS and XLSX formats for spreadsheets. The next is OpenOffice ODS to read OpenOffice files. The next engine or driver is Excel Streamer. Excel Streamer, like Apache POI Streaming, is also for reading large XLSX files. It is memory efficient and works across machine configurations. Comparatively, Apache POI is faster in reading files, but may fail for lower configuration machines with memory error. And the next is Excel binary XLSB. Select Excel binary XLSB engine or driver to read Excel binary files. The file format is available from Excel 2007 onwards. It can read and write to Excel workbook sheets a bit faster, making them useful for large spreadsheets. Although it takes a little extra time for fetching the headers of a file, by default the type of all the columns appear as string in the Fields tab. You can change the field type from the drop-down list. Some of the options on the Content tab and the Error Handling tab are disabled for the Excel binary XLSB driver. With XLS binary file type, you cannot set the Excel binary file type with a runtime parameter, and the Add File Names to Result checkbox is not applicable for Excel binary files. For now, for the purposes of this demo, let me select Excel 2007 XLS Apache POI. In the File or Directory field, specify or browse the location or the name of the input file. So let me browse for a file. I want to select a file 11. You can click on the Add button to add the selected files to the table below. As you can see, the file now appears in the Selected Files table. You can add more than one file. So once again, I will browse and I will select a file 22 and add it to the list. I can browse for one more file, file 33, and add it to the list. When you select multiple files, it picks up the columns from all the files, and the data of the files is appended one below the other. So it could be more useful when you are receiving the same file type from different sources, such as the timesheet in the same format from different business units, and so on. You can also delete the files in the Selected Files table. Just select the file you wish to delete and click on the Delete button. So for now, let me delete these files. We can also provide a directory in the File or Directory field. However, providing a file or directory may not be enough. You need to provide a regular expression or the exclude regular expression to select files in the directory accordingly. For example, let me add a regular expression so that it selects all the files ending with a .xlsx. Now let me click the Add button. So you can see in the table below, it has added the file or directory and it has added the regular expression. Let us click the Show File Names and you can see all the files ending with a .xlsx in the directory. You can also directly provide the wildcard regular expression in the table. So I can directly type my regular expression in the table. Let me delete this. Now once again, let me provide a file or directory, and this time in the exclude regular expression, let me provide an expression to exclude all the files ending with a .csv. Now let me click Add. As you can see, it has added the file or directory, and in the exclude wildcard it has entered the value. Let us click on Show File Names, and you can see all the file names, but there are no CSV files in the list. Now the selected files is a tabular list of selected files or wildcard selections, and it has a property specifying if the file is required or not. If a file is required and it is not found, an error is generated. However, if you select Not Required and the file is not found, then the file is skipped. You can also select if you wish to include subfolders. You can select from yes or no. So for now, I have kept it to no. For now, let me delete this. For the purposes of this demo, let me select an employee information file and add it to the selected files. The next is Accept File Names from Previous Steps. You can enable the checkbox to read file names from previous steps in the workflow. You can specify the step name to read the file names from. You can also select from the list, and you can specify the field in the input to use as a file name. You can select from the list. However, note, before you can use the option to accept file names from previous step, You need to browse for the file, add it to the selected fields list, and make sure you configure the Sheets and the Fields tabs. Once you've done that, then you can come and enable the checkbox and provide the step and field names. For the purpose of this demo, let me uncheck and we will go with the employee details file. Let us go to the next tab, that is the Sheets tab. You can click on the Get Sheet Names. You can select one or more sheets from the list. In this case, we just have one sheet, so let me move it to the right hand side and click OK. You can also provide a start row in the sheet from where you wish to start reading. And you can specify the start column to start reading. You can also specify the start row and start column as variables. For now, we wish to start reading from the A1 cell, so we will leave the start row and start column blank. Now let us go to the Content tab. The first is the header checkbox. It is checked by default and reads the header row in the Excel or OpenOffice files. If you wish to skip the header row, you can uncheck the header checkbox. Let us leave it checked. The next is the No Empty Rows checkbox. If checked, no empty rows are generated in the output sheet. The default value is checked. Stop on empty row. You can enable the checkbox to stop reading the current sheet of a file when an empty line is encountered. Limit. You can specify a limit on the number of rows to read, so you can provide a number here. The default is 0 and it reads all the rows in the sheet. The next is encoding. Specify the text file encoding to use. You can select from the drop-down list. The Enable Batching checkbox is editable only if the spreadsheet type engine is Excel binary. So you can enable this option for reading large Excel SP files using batch processing. So once you enable the Enable Batching checkbox, the batch size is enabled and you can provide the number of rows per batch for processing. The data type is number. Next is the Result File Names section containing the Add File Names to Result checkbox. Enable the checkbox to add file names to result so that the file is visible in the AutomationEdge requests portal. For the purposes of this demo, I'm going to leave it unchecked. Let us go to the next tab, that is Error Handling. You can enable the Strict Types checkbox to report data type errors in the input. You can enable the Ignore Errors checkbox to ignore errors during parsing. If you enable Ignore Errors, it enables all the other fields below it. Enable the Skip Error Lines checkbox to skip lines with errors. The next is the Warning Files directory. Specify a Warning Files directory to store the warning file. It can be set by variables using the Variables button. Clicking on the Variables button shows you the list of variables and you can select the variable for the warnings directory, or you can even browse for the warning files directory. Similarly, you can specify the errors file directory for storing errors. The extension is error by default. You can set it using variables or you can browse for the directory location. And finally, failing line numbers file directory. It stores the files with errors on a line number. The default extension is line. You can set it using variables or you can browse for the directory. For now, we will leave these blank. Let us go to the Fields tab. In the Fields tab, you can enter the names of the columns in the Excel file, or you can click the Get Fields from Header row to get all the fields from the Excel file. It displays the data type by default. You can change the data type by selecting from the list. Specify the maximum length of the field in the length column. You can specify the precision of the field. You can select a trim type such as none, left trim, right trim, or both. Specify a boolean for the repeating fields. Select this field to yes if you want to repeat the values when the values in the next row are empty. You can specify a format from the drop-down list. Specify a currency symbol if applicable. Specify a decimal symbol such as period or comma. Specify a thousands grouping symbol such as comma or period. So we will leave it to the default settings. Once you select Sheets and specify the fields, the Preview Rows button is enabled. You can click on it, enter the number of rows you would like to preview and click OK. You can now see all the data in the sheet in the Excel file. Notice that it is displaying roll number with decimals. If you wish to display it as a whole number, change the data type to integer. You can preview the rows again and you can see the data of the Excel sheet. And finally, let us go to the additional output fields. In the full file name field, specify a field name to capture the full file name along with the extension. For example, I have specified full file name. Similarly, you can provide field names for the other properties of the Excel file. In the sheet name field, you can provide a field name to hold the sheet name, a field name to hold the sheet row number, specify a field name to capture the number of rows written, specify a field name for the file name without the path, specify a field name to capture the extension of the file, specify a field name to capture the path in the operating system format, specify a field name to capture the size of the file name, specify a field name to capture the size of the file, specify a field name to capture whether the file is hidden or not, specify a field name to contain the latest modified field, specify a field name that contains the URI of the file, specify a field name that contains only the root part of the URI. It is optional if you wish to capture these fields. In my case, I'm only capturing the first option, that is the full file name. Click OK. Let us recap. In this video, we saw the Microsoft Excel input step, description and configuration options. You can jumpstart your digital transformation journey with AutomationEdge's conversational AI and hyperautomation platforms.